Welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. I want to share with you this week something that I realized that occurred last week when I was presented with a few financial opportunities. And I really want to point this out because I don't only want this episode to be inspirational. I mean, that's all well and good, but I actually want to provide you with some actionable steps so that you could start moving forward toward financial freedom. Because the three opportunities that were presented to me last week, I wouldn't have ever envisioned when I was in debt and when I was trying to figure out what investing meant, and when I was trying to build my emergency savings, and when I was trying to manage all of the competing priorities, all the things that were going on that required my money, and I couldn't quite get a handle on it. And it all seemed so overwhelming, and I just felt really disorganized. I never would have imagined that I would be at this point now in my life where I would have opportunities where money would continue to make money for me. One of the things that I know for certain is that money follows money. There's an abundance of money in the world. There's an abundance of money in the United States of America. And there is really only people who understand money and people who don't. And if you understand how money works, it will continue to be in your orbit. It will continue to circle around you, and you just need to reach out and grab the opportunities that present themselves, but only if you understand how money works. So first, I'm going to talk about the three opportunities, just so you have an understanding of why this was so mind-boggling to me when I sat back and I reflected on it. And then I'm going to lead you into some actionable steps to help you move forward on your wealth building journey. So the first opportunity that presented myself and that was presented to me, and these aren't in any particular order, I just realized that all of them came to me last week, was a friend of mine that I've known for a few decades approached me about joining a real estate investing group. And he said that there were some great opportunities, some great folks who were involved. They had a very clear vision, and he thought that this might be something that I would be interested in, knowing that I have a penchant for real estate, that I've invested in real estate for many years, that I enjoy it. It's something that I know very well and I'm comfortable with. And also because I have the funds to allocate towards something like this. So I was really grateful for that opportunity, and I'm exploring that. And I'm just happy that I have somebody in my life who would consider including me in an opportunity like that. Because I realize that for a lot of people, even if they could make the transition into investing in different areas, they don't know anybody that they can trust or anybody who's doing anything like this in their world. So even though the opportunities are out there, it's not as easy as if somebody's coming to you and presenting the opportunities to you. The second opportunity that came up was a venture capital fund that is going to be investing in AI. Now, if you listened to my podcast last week, you know that I talked a lot about AI and Gen Z and how they are going to, or anybody who's in the workforce or entering the workforce, that over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to have to work with AI and not against it, and how it's going to impact your particular industry and how you can get ahead of it. Because really and truly, if you are walking around with your head down, you are going to completely miss the boat. And when the economic landscape changes and the job market changes, if you are not prepared for it, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of development, the wrong side of economic growth, and unfortunately, the wrong side of wealth building. So when I heard of this venture capital fund that was going to be heavily investing in AI, and I had this opportunity to review a lot of the documentation and potentially contribute a 6-figure investment into it, I said, well, this is something that I can't ignore. And the third opportunity that was presented to me last week, I feel like I had a busy week with just sitting around, people coming to me and me finding these types of opportunities. But the third opportunity that was presented to me last week was I was in this peer group and that I'm a member of, and one of the members talked about how there's a lot of development going on in the Caribbean and in this particular island, and that they are now expanding with luxury resort hotels and luxury resort accommodations. And he started to describe an area of the island where there's going to be a ton of expansion, and it would behoove everybody who's an investor and who's interested in that island in that country to consider purchasing investments in that area. Now, it just so happens that the island is the island where my parents are from, and they own property in this particular area. And so I really perked up when I heard that, because I was like, well, this is land that they've had for quite some time that they haven't done anything with. And now it's an opportunity for them to make some decisions. And of course, for them to leverage that land to create some money out of it. So it's just something to think about. But it was another opportunity that was presented to me, another option that I had that I wouldn't have had years ago. And I then took a step back and I said, well, would you have had these opportunities? Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't think, for one, even if these opportunities had been presented to me, that I would have even given it a second thought to even consider any of them, because at the time I was so overwhelmed by everything money. I was really trying to dig myself out of a financial hole, and also focus on the things that were coming at me on a day-to-day basis. So how could I think about investing for that far down the line? Now, of course, I wouldn't have had venture capital opportunities presented to me back then, because I wasn't qualified to even be involved in those. I didn't have the net worth to do it. I didn't have the income to do it. So it wasn't even an option. However, some of the other opportunities, I wouldn't have had the bandwidth to even consider, because I was so bogged down by the debt that I had to pay off and how I was going to get through day after day after day with all the other demands on my money. So because of that, I wanted to make this podcast for all the folks out there who may be in that position, who may be struggling with debt, who may be thinking about their future and saying, I haven't started investing, who may be wondering why it is so difficult to keep up with their expenses, even though they continue to make more and more money year after year after year. I want you to know that you need to take a deep breath, listen to the steps that I'm going to outline for you, and dig in. Because the only way to get out of this situation is to do so in a stepwise fashion. You got to get organized, you got to get clear, you got to get focused, and you got to get help. Because sometimes this is too much to do on your own. And when you're staring at it by yourself, it's just so overwhelming that you become paralyzed. And I know that feeling. And I think that feeling is what keeps you inactive. It keeps you stuck for a long time when you could really, in 6 months, be in a completely different situation, which will enable you to actually see what is possible for you. All right, so let's start with the first step. And this sometimes is a hard one, because it requires you to look at where you are financially. And sometimes that comes with a lot of anger and disappointment and overwhelm and confusion, because you don't clearly understand how you arrived at the place that you're at right now. The one thing that I would recommend everybody do is get a really clear picture of your finances. And by that, I mean, honestly, list every single bill you own, every single debt, and every single expense. And I'm talking about everything, whether it's coffee, whether it's groceries, whether it's car repair, every single thing that's going out or that went out for this previous month, along with your entire income. You need to see these numbers. You cannot make a change without knowing where you are right now. And the numbers may be scary. I get it. I'm going to hold your hand through it. It is going to be scary. But you need to know your numbers before you can even decide what direction you're going to go into, or before you decide how you're going to move. Okay? So this is going to help you see what's truly possible. Let's list all of the expenses, debts, and bills that are going out and all of the income that's coming in. Once you know where you are, you may be, when you take your income and you subtract all of those expenses, you may be in the red, you may be in the negative, right? Or you may have very little left over at the end of the month. I don't want you to focus on that right now. I just want you to hear the steps, and over the course of the next few weeks, I'll break down what to do about when you're negative or when you are bringing in, have very little left at the end of every month. We're going to tackle what to do. But right now, let's go through the actionable steps. So first, get that clear picture of your finances. The second thing that I want you to do is build a really small emergency fund. You can call this a shit happens fund. You can call it what if fund. It is for things that are unexpected that come up. Okay? I want you to build a small fund. And by small, I mean $500 to $1,000. If you don't already have a savings account, a high yield savings account where you can keep a $500 to $1,000 and park it there and not use it unless there's an emergency, that is something that you have to do immediately. Start saving up that money, and I do not want you to touch it. Put it in a high yield savings account, not the savings account that may be attached to your checking account. No. Put it in a high yield savings account where you can't get at it, where it's going to be parked there, and it's going to be making a little interest for you, right? A little bit more than what you'd get from your brick and mortar bank. Make this a priority before you start investing aggressively. And the reason why you want this small fund is because stuff happens, stuff comes up. And the reason why we end up getting into debt is because when stuff comes up, what do? We reach for our credit card. So I want you to create a little cushion between you and your credit card so that if something comes up, you need a new tire, something comes up that you didn't anticipate that is truly an emergency, then you can utilize this emergency fund from your high yield savings account to pay for it. That way you are not adding to your debt. It is so difficult to eradicate your debt if you keep piling onto that debt. If you keep piling onto your credit card while you're paying it off, you're going to feel like you're going nowhere. And I know a lot of you are familiar with that feeling. So you can't, fill a bucket with the hole in the bottom. It's going to continue to seep out. So I want you to use this high yield savings account, put $500 to $1,000 in there, and don't look back until you truly need it. The next thing I want you to do is start to use a very simple budgeting system. You have to look at the numbers. You have to be aware of the numbers. You do not have to budget forever. But right now, you're trying to get out of debt. You're trying to invest. You're trying to work towards financial freedom. You've got to have something that can be measured. And the only way to measure what's going on is to manage it. And by managing it, we've got to have a budget. So you can use whatever method works best for you, but I think my WIN strategy works best for most of my clients. We have to have an understanding of the W, their wants, I for investing, N for their needs, and S for savings. Once we know what is going into all of those categories, we can start to break out the percentages. So how much do you need for housing and bills and groceries under your needs? Usually that's like half our paycheck, but some of you have your car under there and that's taking up half your paycheck before you pay for housing, before you pay any bills, before your groceries. So you can only imagine that you're going to feel squeezed. How could there possibly be anything left for investing or savings when half of your paycheck is going to one bill, right? So it's really important to not only know everything that's going out and what's coming in, but how we allocate or reallocate that money is equally important as well. And that's why a simple system so that you can look at this and then make some decisions or modifications is key. The next thing, number 4, is you've got to attack your debt with a strategy. I know that sometimes people put a little extra money on this one, and then they put a little extra money on the Visa, and then they put a little extra money on the personal loan, and then the next month they put a little extra money on the car, and it's like you're all over the map. None of these things are getting paid off. They're all barely moving because there isn't a strategy. You want to focus on either the snowball method or the avalanche method. And if you go back, I have a whole podcast episode about the differences between the two. I really don't care which one you pick, just pick one. And really the differences between them are like, hey, if you've got a strictly mathematical mind and you're focused on the percentages and you want to pay off the one with the highest interest rate first, go the avalanche method route. If you want to go the snowball method route because, hey, you're going to pay off the smallest debt first so that you get that win, you get that dopamine hit, you feel like you're making progress, and then you move to the next smallest debt and you pay that off, and it feels like, okay, I'm getting somewhere, then choose the snowball method. It doesn't matter which one you choose, pick one. And then I want you to think about how you can create some additional income so you can continue to throw it at the debt. We want to be aggressive with paying off this debt, but we also want to ensure that we're following the strategy. There's a life that you have to live while you're paying off the debt. Okay, there is room for enjoyment while you're paying off the debt. So yeah, you can be super duper aggressive and pay it off really quickly and be miserable. Or we could stretch it out just a little bit longer so that you still have a life and don't feel like you're sacrificing everything. And I think that allows for more retention and more success, because as long as you don't feel like you're being completely deprived, I know you'll stick to the plan. Now, while you're paying off your debt, I think it is important for you to begin investing, or to continue investing if you've already started, even if it's a little amount, because you've got this emergency fund in place, all right? So if anything pops up, you don't have to use your credit card. You can grab that money out of the emergency fund and then replenish it if you've used it. You've got a solid debt payoff strategy. Why wouldn't you invest? For every little bit of debt that you pay off, I think you could start contributing or increase your contributions to a retirement account if you have one, like a 401k at your job, or a Roth IRA. Even if it's $25, $50, $100 in an index fund, it can grow significantly over the years, but you're not losing out on the time while you're paying off the debt. You're not losing out on your investment growth. And that's critical, because I see a lot of people fooling around trying to pay off debt for years, and they don't invest, and they lose a decade or more because they never paid off the debt. And finally they're like, oh, maybe I should start because now I'm in my 50s, but I still have debt. Instead, yes, I want you to be aggressive with your debt payoff strategy, but I also want you to invest along the way so that the minute the debt is finally paid off, you can just turn up the heat on your investments and really start cranking in the money that you're putting towards your future financial freedom. The sixth thing that I really believe people need to focus on, because there's a missed opportunity with your potential income. I know that when people are in 9 to 5s, and I worked a 9 to 5 for a long time, you become slightly complacent. You forget that you have to continuously acquire skills. You either have to acquire those skills so that you can increase your income by getting a promotion or a raise or a higher paying job altogether. And even if you don't leave your full-time job, you should be acquiring additional skills outside of your full-time job so that you could use that for some kind of skill-based side hustle, which could make a huge difference in catching up and paying off that debt more aggressively and towards investing. When you have a plan of action in place and you can see that your debt is going to be paid off by a certain amount of time, then that additional money you can, yes, use towards paying it off faster, but you could also use it towards building up your investments. So with my audience, I know that a lot of you have the education, you have the background, the skills, the positions where you can really ramp up your income without working that much harder. And so if you can monetize any of these additional skills, then I would recommend that you do that. You should have another source of income. You can have a side business that'll pay you more. You can apply for a job that pays more. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've had who were hesitant to apply for a higher paying position or a higher paying job. Every one of my clients, their net worth increases not only because they pay off their debt. That's the least of it. It's because they increase their income. They get a new job. They apply for another job in the organization that they never thought that they would have had, and they get it, and they increase that income, which in turn increases the amount that they're contributing to their investments, which in turn increases their net worth. Working together with me isn't about solely eliminating your debt. Sure, let's get rid of it. I'm looking at growth. I don't want to look at the past the entire time with you. I want you to look towards the future. I want you to know what it feels like not to have to worry about money. And the only way we can do that is by looking at this holistically and tackling it holistically. So the seventh step that I want you to do, and this one's probably the hardest for most people because it requires you to cut yourself some slack. I want you to give yourself some grace. You didn't get here overnight. You're not going to get out of this overnight. This takes time. Like financially rebuilding your life takes time. And the progress may feel slow. But I will tell you that with anything else, the consistency compounds. The money compounds, the consistent effort compounds, the opportunities compound, the entire way in which you look at money compounds. And it works in your favor. I know you have it in you. I know that this is something that you want. And I know from being in your position that it was really hard to imagine that I wouldn't feel the way that I was feeling, confused and overwhelmed and disorganized for so long. And I know that feeling, but I also know that once I got a strategy, which is what I'm sharing with you, which is what I share with my clients. So when my clients can see on the horizon when they're going to become millionaires, when they can see on the horizon when they're going to be able to pay for their kids' college and how much money they'll have there, when they can see on the horizon how quickly they will get out of debt, when they can see on the horizon when they can pay for their kids' weddings. They can see this stuff because they've decided that, all right, I've got to stop thinking and perseverating and staying up at nights and arguing about this. And I've actually got to take action. I want you to share this with everyone you know. I ask you this every week. And the reason why I tell you is because more and more people are struggling with their finances. More and more people are finding that they can't keep up. More and more people are finding that this is becoming tougher and tougher with less and less money at the end of the month and more month than money every single month. And I think that this can be alleviated for a lot of folks. They just don't know where to start. These opportunities that were presented to me during last week, I don't even know if I would have seen them, understood them, would have been able to absorb them, or have the bandwidth to take them on. But I know that because I took the steps that I described to you in this episode, I am now able to welcome all of the opportunities that come my way. I want that for you. I want you to book a call with me. Let's get started. Summer's coming to a close. There's no better time than the present, because the only way that this can work is if you actually take the first step. All right, folks, I will see you next week. Take care.